It's not every podcast that I start off by saying thank you. But I think it's important for this episode because it struck me now as I'm sitting here in my closet. For people watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see that behind me is a curtain. I've got a curtain up in my closet. And it's important to recognize that you, even though you're by yourself, or you're at the gym, or you're in your car, or you're taking a dump, whatever it is you're doing at this very moment, keep it to yourself. But you are part of a larger group. And what I think is important to recognize now, especially in this particular episode, where I think you're going to start to get the international feel of what's happening with this show, is you're part of a group. And there is a commitment and a fervor in this group, which I've never seen before. And I don't put myself into that group because I don't listen to the show. But you guys have an incredible tenacity, a level of commitment to take an hour of your life each week and to simply flush it down the toilet. And I don't know how you guys do it. I don't know how you stay so committed, but you do. So thank you. And it's something that you should be applauded for. Let's get into the episode.
Welcome to the Wandering DP Podcast, where we focus on Leica photography, cinematography, and life offset. And now your host, Patrick O'Sullivan.
And the podcast doth continue. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Wandering DP Podcast. And this is episode number 132. 132 times we've done that stupid intro. And it never gets any better. On the show today, as I mentioned, we've got Colin Watkinson. You will know his stuff from a series like The Handmaid's Tale, which he's got going on at the moment. He's got a series of Entourage. He's got episodes of that. He's got tons and tons of commercials and other stuff, which we're going to get into. And it's a very unique and interesting perspective on cinematography because, yes, sometimes we'll talk to people that are just starting out. Sometimes we'll talk to Rupert Sanders. Sometimes we'll talk to, I don't know. Sometimes you'll just hear me talking, which is the lowest of the low. But it's interesting to get those different levels. And I know we got some people messaging, leaving messages on the hotline last week about, they don't see how Rupert Sanders' career relates to theirs. But I think one of the good parts about this podcast is really the best time to learn from anyone is just after they've overcome whatever obstacle they've overcome, right? As you pass, and I think even Rupert mentioned this in his episode, in that it goes so far back that you just gloss over the difficult parts. You gloss over the parts that you didn't actually realize you didn't know, and then you learned from those, and you forgot that you learned from those, and pretty soon all that knowledge that you accumulated just becomes second nature, and you just think that this is how it has always been. So it's I think the benefit of the podcast and the benefit of a show like this is talking to a whole different range of individuals where they are in their career. And we got Colin at a very interesting time, having just finished up with Handmaid's Tale. And he had changed his workflow for the show, so it was interesting to hear about how, as things escalate and things get busier and busier and busier, how the role of cinematographer changes and how it morphs and how a director of photography really does define the role, because there are so many moving parts and you have to manage things and manage people and manage responsibilities differently than you would if you were just shooting a little tiny commercial. So that is this week's episode. And for those people that, you want to hear from more up and coming people, don't worry about that. We're going to have more episodes like that in the future. But for the moment, I think even no matter where you are in your career, you're going to get something out of this interview with Colin. And this is one of the ones. This is actually the first one. Last week, we talked about the first part of the LA sort of invasion that happened with the podcast. This is the very first in-person interview. So I sat face to face with Colin. He got to see my mug for an extended period of time in our little Airbnb turned studio. And I hope that you enjoy the different style of conversation, right? Because sitting across from him, it's a little bit freaky at the start. You're like, oh, who's this person asking me these questions? But I think the conversation was the better for it. And I was happy that he decided to come down, and we found a spot in between his incredibly busy schedule to arrange it and to make it happen. And hopefully you get a lot out of the interview. Now, what else have we got going? The feedback from last week, I talked about people saying, the Rupert Sanders directing $170 million feature film, what does that have to do with me? But the idea of overcoming obstacles and the idea of managing, and how people think that feature films really is the highest level, or now just longer form stuff. Everyone seems to want to get longer form stuff, but it's nice sometimes to hear from individuals who are doing it what are the pros and cons, because in any situation, there's going to be things where you'd rather not do them. and you don't think about those until you actually get there. So interesting to hear different people's takes. We've touched on that. This thing is on Instagram TV, right? If you're looking at me, sometimes you look sideways. I've uploaded the episodes onto Instagram TV. I have no idea if anyone actually watches this thing on Instagram TV, but the idea is vertical video. I just uploaded a different version where all you have to do is turn your phone. If you're too lazy to turn your phone, good for you. So this is on Instagram TV. If you watch on Instagram TV, please let me know, or I'll just stop uploading them because it's a complete waste of my time. On Patreon, for the Patreon supporters, this is your episode, right? This is what we get for supporting the show. We're moving the show across continents and sitting face to face with these people and trying to squeeze out all of the information that we can out of them and get something actionable that you guys can take away and use on your next project. So thank you very much for making this all possible. Without you, I'd still be sitting here. There wouldn't be a curtain, right? That's a Patreon curtain. You'd probably see my clothes if it wasn't for that curtain, and it wouldn't be near as good, right? So thank you very much to the Patreon people. The thank you this week is just a live stream, as always. We're going to be setting it up for Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. The live stream is this, only you can tell me in real time how much you hate the sound of my voice, which is a little bit different than leaving a message. Speaking of which, the hotline is fucking up and going. The hotline, people have been drawn to it, and the problem is, I ran across one small issue this week, which is the hotline is a paid feature. You have to pay for access to use this little device that you put on your website, and I didn't pay, of course. I got the free version, and the free version limits you to 20 messages in a month, and we got that in 2 days. So if I erased your message, it's probably for a few different reasons. Number one, it was boring. If your message is shitty, nobody wants to hear it, it got erased. And that's not to say you're boring, right? I'm sure you're a fantastic person, but if your message sucked, I erased it. No, if you did try and leave a message and it said the thing was full, the inbox was full, I have gone through and downloaded and quickly erased them all. So I have not erased any of your messages from existence. I've just downloaded them. So now other people can leave messages. So feel free to hop on the hotline. Let me know where you're listening from and who you are and the kind of stuff that you got going. And we're going to try and get it on the show, which is exactly what we're going to do today. So Patreon live stream happening. We talked about that. Get your projects in if you are a Patreon supporter, and start looking for those archival episodes that are coming up on Patreon if you're interested in going back and hearing the dog shit sound quality of 2014. Next week on the podcast is a breakdown episode. We are going to see the very last of our spokesman series that we've been doing the last 4 weeks or whatever it is. We'll see the last and final day, which is again shooting inside a garage. I seem to be, if you want something shot inside of a garage, half of it in the driveway and half of it in the garage, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I'm your fucking man. I can shoot the shit out of a garage. I don't know if I can actually do it. I just do it quite a bit. So that is next week on the podcast, a little breakdown episode. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes on YouTube. And that's it. Okay. The hotline, or shall we get into it? Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is where the international part of the episode will take over. Let's see, because in my head I'd cooked up this little person that listens to the show who I'm talking to, but then again at Cine Gear I sort of got a different idea of the people that listen to the show, but I think this is going to add a little something. Here we go.
Hello, my name is Christian. I'm a photographer from Germany.
The Germans, ladies and gentlemen. This podcast has got a little bit of an audience there in Europe. Let's do this here. Christian, I think his name was.
And I would like to ask you something about the differences between photographers and cinematographers.
Yep, the difference is cinematographers have skill, photographers don't. Okay.
I was just watching your video with natural light, and I was thinking that most photographers would try to lighten up the darker parts, whereas cinematographers always put blacks everywhere.
This is true. This is very true. I don't know about the photography part because I'm not a photographer, but I can tell you that cinematography a lot of the time is all about taking light away. We talk, the number one thing in the Patreon live stream that people give me shit about is mentioning neg fill all the time. All the time negging things. It's just quicker and easier than lighting things up. So yes, I would agree. And
I was thinking, why is that? Maybe you have a good idea?
I don't have a good idea, but I have one. So basically the question is, why do photographers seem to light things up, and why do cinematographers seem to take away light? There's a few different reasons in my head. Just first off would be that photographers have a lot more control because you only have a single image. You can do a lot more to the image later in Photoshop, right? You don't have to worry. It's much easier to do correction of images, to bring things down. If you expose to the right, as they say, and try and get as much information and light onto the sensor, then you can make those adjustments later. You have more control, basically. Where as a cinematographer, you won't see your work for 6 months and then someone else will color it. And if you give them all the information, they're going to do whatever it is they do with it. And early on in the podcast episodes, that was one of the misconceptions that I had. You know, how much freedom do you give the people down the line? How much freedom do you give to the director and to the colorist and to the editor, whoever is doing the post on your work, to manipulate it? And what we found over the years, and this could be a process of evolution for all cinematographers as they get better with digital, as they get more accustomed to the workflow, they get burned a few times, is you're starting to see more and more people try and bake in as many quote unquote problems or things that you can't come back from, just in order to have a voice, in order to say, this is how I want the image to look, and I'm going to try and make it so that you can't really back it up from there. And that's happening not only with cinematographers, but directors as well, who sometimes these projects will get taken away from, and you really want to make the thing look like you want to make it look. And that's easier on longer form stuff because you have more input. But on commercials, that is why I would say that they're constantly trying to bake in the look as much as you can and get it in camera. You hear a lot of people say that. Try and get the look as close as possible in camera so that they can't really do much. Whereas photography, with that added flexibility and the ease of it, right, doesn't take a whole lot of time. You can do it with a very simple computer. Photoshop, you can be very quick about those things. I think that is probably the main reason why you see, and also, your different display formats. You've got the opportunity in commercials or in film. The person is locked into the screen. They don't have to be taken away from something else. Where if you're doing fashion photography, they're flicking through a magazine with 50,000 ads in it. You sort of need that saturation. You need the contrast to say, hey, over here, look at me, dipshit. Bah. You need that. But with cinematography, you can be a bit more subtle.
The best I could come up with is that most photos need to be printed.
Wrong. No, that sounds
Whereas
good.
in video, backlit video, it's a bit more easy to get away with the darker image, but I'm not sure. Maybe that's the reason.
Yeah, I would, like I just said, I think that's probably one of them for sure, in that the print, where the print is going versus where the final format is going up. And that's just sort of a style. Now, the darker, more nuanced shoulder of the image, that look, if you go back, I don't know, even before pre-Alexa, maybe in like a David Fincher movie where, and even like, I'm thinking Fight Club, something like that, where the toe of the image has been manipulated so much and there's so much nuance in there. You didn't really see a ton of that 20 years ago. This is something new. As cinematography as a whole has gotten better and techniques have gotten better, being able to manipulate that area of the image, people have gotten bolder because they can see what they're doing. They've had enough experience with the sensors, with the chips, that they know where the limit is, and that's really where the experimentation has come in. You look at some of the older stuff and you're like, Jesus. Especially if you're a young kid who didn't grow up on that stuff, you look at some of the old stuff and you're like, this looks like shit. And you may be right, or you may be wrong, but for the time it probably looked groundbreaking. But now there's so much control and there's so much nuance, and the techniques have gotten so good, and the ability of what you can do later has gotten so interesting that it really has now. The flaws are what set you apart, and you see a lot of people shooting film now because of the idea that it bakes this thing in. There's something inherent in it. The mistakes can't be avoided, or what make it interesting.
But I was hoping that you can give some advice for photographers to learn about this kind of stuff from motion. Okay, thanks.
Sweet. Thanks for the question. I think the advice would be to make it look, it's never been easier, basically, to get into cinematography, in the sense that if you have the skills of recognizing an image, what you like in it, it's very easy to replicate. And I think this has come up a few times, whether it's in the Facebook group or questions beforehand. What makes a good cinematographer really is someone who's interesting. And that's sort of counterintuitive, but once you get to a certain level, everyone has the same technique and everyone has the same technical knowledge. What makes an interesting image is someone who has an interesting point of view. And photographers they come to the entry level of cinematography already with a vision. At least, a good photographer who has experience. And that's oftentimes while they'll go into becoming a director, because there's so much more input from a commercial photographer that is necessary that more sort of lines up with directing. But if you're looking to get into cinematography, it's very easy to take that vision is what you want to manipulate and what you want to build upon. And really, there's so much freedom and flexibility. It doesn't matter what camera that you're shooting with now. There's so much flexibility now. Just make it look nice. Make it look how you want it to look on the day. And that's it. The difference between strobes and continuous light. Once you understand the concept of light, everything is easy. Once you understand the little tips and tricks that basically spell out the things, the expectations, like shooting into shadow, like keeping the background a little bit darker, like softening as you go in. Those things you pick up and learn along the way. But the advantage that you have being a photographer is that you have this thing that you like already. You put the eyepiece up to your eye with the camera, whatever you're shooting with. You go to take a photo. You have your own little style and place where you're going to stand and lens that you're going to choose, and that is what you want to take into cinematography and push as far as you can, and then the collaboration idea, right? Being able to, if you're a photographer who's going to be becoming a cinematographer, just remember that there's so many more people involved that what you won't be able to do as you build up and up and up is control everything. You'll have to learn to manage the people around you and to say, well, how can I get the best out of the gaffer or the grip or the director? How can I talk or communicate with those people in order to get what I'd like to get across moving? So I'd say that's where you want to focus your energy if you are a photographer coming up. But thanks for the question. Okay, let's go into the next one. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Mahmoud. I'm a film student doing my master's degree right now.
Mahmoud, my man, doing the study thing. Okay, I like it. Getting a master's.
In Los Angeles.
L.A., La La Land.
I'm starting to learn the basics of cinematography right now. I've been eager and to learn more about it, and I'm going deep and deeper in it. I've started listening to your podcast recently, and I like the way how you break it down.
I appreciate that, Mahmoud. And the way I break it down is just the way that I talk. There's no particular technique to it, but I appreciate that you're listening.
And show us all the details that you do in your shots. So it has been very beneficial for me.
My pleasure.
My question is, what would you recommend as a basic kit for lighting that I can invest in so I can start to use it in my career? That would be good enough for the basics.
Mahmoud, good question. And you've never come in at an easier time. But the thing is, I guess you have to identify, and we've answered this question a few different times, what you have to identify is what you want to be doing. What level of project you want to be working on. Because the idea of buying stuff that you're going to use on a commercial, if you're actually thinking about shooting commercials, the chances of you ever bringing on your own lights, unless they're very small, you have to be of a certain level to do that, even because you're going to have teams of people that are going to be helping you, going to be moving stuff around. So you wouldn't want to go too heavy, basically is what I'm saying, in the lighting gear department, because there's people whose whole existence relies upon getting lighting gear that's right for the job. And then as you move up, you want more specific instruments. But there are a few different things when you're starting out. If you're thinking about single person adventures that you're going to be going on and shooting, or what do they call it, one-man band sort of jobs, where smaller is going to be better. LED is obviously going to be a much easier choice, less heat, less bulk, and I mean we could talk about that. The thing is, you've got so many choices now. Like I was saying at Cine Gear, every other company produces some sort of LED mats, but probably then you have to decide, okay, you're definitely going to want some sort of mat, I would imagine. Mats they're versatile. You can use them in every setup. You can use them on no matter what budget project that you're working on. There's always going to be a need for mats. If you're thinking about, okay, I want to get something that I can use for the rest of my, I don't know, the next 5 years on possible scalable commercial things, that's when the price of these things starts to increase, because you can get some no-name Chinese brand LED mat and you can use it for your own personal projects. But as you start to move up, those things become less usable, not because the light is no good, but because no one else is used to using it. And if you palm that off to a gaffer, if you palm it off to a best boy or whatever, whoever is now rigging the lights, and they've never seen the thing before, you're going to show up to set. They're going to be like, what the fuck is this thing? Like, this is not the standard, which is why the standards are so expensive, because they're made a certain way to a specific set. Everyone knows them. Everyone on the crew gets used to them. It's like the light gear stuff. Light mats have become, like it or not, they are the mat of the working world. So if you're interested in what the working world is using and you want to get familiar with that, then I would go with some sort of LED mat, like a light mat from Light Gear. That would be the number one choice. Then something a little bit cheaper that I use here, that I never would have purchased, I never would have thought would have been any good, is the aperture stuff. I've got aperture light right here through a light dome. It looks cool. It looks nice. It's super small. It's got crazy amounts of punch. What am I? I'm on, this is 14%. 14%. And I'm at 640 ISO, a T4. So that is, and it's through 2 pieces of diffusion to get to my face. So it's a lot of level packed into this little tiny LED. It doesn't make any noise. It's not very bulky. It's daylight balanced. Something like that, or a 300, which is even more. A little tiny aperture set would be cheap, easy to use, and it seems robust enough. So I would say something like that, where you need a little bit of punch, you need a little light mat, and then I would just accumulate a shitload. I've talked about 4x4 floppies on the show before. 4x4 floppies are great, but they're fucking hard to fit in your car. Everybody that I've told to buy one has a hard time because you can't fit it in your car. Like, a normal car is not going to be able to carry a 4x floppy. So what you can do instead of that is just get a bunch of blacks that you can pin up different places, get a bunch of bed sheet that you can hang different places and use as diffusion. And really that's it because by the time you scale that up to larger and larger things, you're not going to be using your own stuff. So I would say some sort of light mat. If you're interested in only using it yourself, get some off-brand thing. If you are interested in having other people use it along the lines, the Light Gear stuff really is industry standard. And then if you want something with a little bit more punch, I don't know, I don't really see more bang for the buck than the aperture stuff, but I'm not really in that world, but that's where I would be going. And once you get there, it's like, you get any more than 2 or 3 lights, what do you accumulate? A lot of people will get quasar tubes. The danger, of course, is that you're going to put them in the shot, and then it's going to look like everybody else's stuff. They are nice, though, like Cy Turnbull. When we had him on the show, he was really using, they weren't quasars, but little tubes that looked industrial. That was for a purpose, rather than just chucking them in the back of the scene because they look cool. It ends up looking like everybody else's shit. So that's where I would say start with a little bit of punch, something cheap, LED, and then a matte would be the easiest thing, and then blacks and whites. Let's not get into the race war here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, that is, thank you for that question, Mahmoud. Was that it?
From your experience.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Hopefully that answers the question. Thank you for coming in and calling on the hotline. So far we've got Germany, we've got Los Angeles. Let's go to the last and final one here.
Hi, Patrick. Here's Virgil.
Virgil, what's happening? Virgil.
From Berlin. First, thanks for your hard work and all the knowledge and tips that you're sharing.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the kind words, Virgil. Thank you very much for sending in the hotline. What's the question?
Then I wanted to ask you, in a day exterior overcast situation, what will be your lighting package on a small budget scale and on a big budget one?
Okay. For day overcast, I guess it depends on what you're calling big budget. If you're shooting some sort of Marvel feature, it's going to be a lot different, and the style of look that you're going for. But normal everyday commercials that I would be working on, say, would be 3 in the lighting, 2 in the grip, and that's sort of where I'll go from that. For low budget stuff, easiest thing to do is shoot day exterior stuff. Easiest to get an image that doesn't look like complete shit, in the sense that there's not much contrast to deal with. You don't have to fight a lot of things with overcast exterior. But then again, it is hard to get shape. The only way you're going to get shape is by taking light away on a low budget, because you're not going to have a generator. You're not going to have any 18Ks that will be able to overpower what's there. Even on the darkest of overcast days, it's going to be really hard to overpower anything with an LED light. Small enough that's going to be cheap enough to be on some low budget project. So I would say the lights you can sort of forget about. What then comes into play is how much blacks, how much negative fill you can put up. And that comes down to the team that you have and the way that you're going to rig the blacks. A lot of the time, if it's just 12 by 12, like the reverse side of an ultra bounce, that's fairly cheap. There really is no cheaper in terms of gear. There's nothing cheaper than day overcast exterior if you're not going to use lights, because then you're only shaping. So I would be having as many blacks as you can fit in whatever truck you're moving around, and then use those to take away as much light as humanly possible. That is going to be the real challenge, is fighting for that contrast and fighting the flatness, basically. So from a low budget perspective, that's it. As many blacks as you can get, and that's it. Then you have to just direct yourself towards the light. For the big budget stuff, generally, here, at least in Australia, when working, you get the whole truck every time you get a gaffer. So you don't have to nitpick little tiny items and say, okay, I want this, I want this, I want this. It just comes out. But really the only thing that comes out of the trucks on overcast days are the giant lights. And that's if you want to match something that you'd shot before. If you don't want to match something that you shot before and say you just want like a little edge, you're still going to bring out the biggest lights. So those would be your 18Ks or your M9s, something like that would be the go-to package. But even if you have those big lights, you still have to use the blacks to create the contrast. Even that amount of light, there's just too much coming out of the sky. The sort of overhead softbox effect of an overcast sky. There's so much fill that's happening, so much ambient that's happening, that even those lights are going to have a hard time creating the contrast by themselves. So you're going to have to use the neg fill anyway. It'll just get bigger. So the bigger you can get it, the more control you can have. The smaller it gets, the less control you have. And as you move in, obviously it gets easier and easier as the shots get tighter and tighter, which we've seen multiple times on the podcast. But I wouldn't say there's much of a difference. And even on those bigger budget projects, bringing out the lights would be really, really rare. It would probably be a situation where you're matching something that was in sunlight. You'd be then trying to light to that. But for overcast days, you couldn't really pick a smaller package in terms of equipment and in terms of the price of the equipment, right? It's just a bunch of frames. The problem with the frames is that if it's overcast and there's wind, if there's overcast and it's weather, you need a lot of people and a lot of hands to deal with the frames, because moving a 12 by 12 frame, even a 6 by 6 frame, you need two people, and then you can only move one at a time, and then you got to place the thing, you got to put the sandbags on there, and blah, 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 heebity he. It becomes a bit of a pain in the ass. So I would say that, fabrics and textiles would be your friend in that case. But I appreciate the call, and that's why we're going to end it for the hotline. So if you called in and you didn't get your message on, I've got them backed up. They will be on the show, no doubt, unless they're terrible questions. If you want to send in other questions or topics, maybe we want to get some, something else on the show. Go ahead and do that. Call up the hotline. You can see it on the show notes page. This is episode wanderingdp.com/episode 132 is where you'll see that little button for the hotline. You can just leave a message, and we'll try and get you on the show. Okay, before we get into the interview with Colin Watkinson, we have, ladies and gentlemen, you think you know what I'm going to say right now. You think I'm going to mention the music bed. You think I'm going to say, I'm going to do the mouth trumpet, the music bed, and you think I'm going to mention the new website with the include, exclude. Well, I'll tell you what, you don't know me. You do not know me. Because I'm not going to say that. In fact, we've got new copy, ladies and gentlemen. New copy from the music bed. The Film and Music Conference 2018 edition is here. It is going to be held in Fort Worth, Texas, September 28th and 29th. 2 days of all-out fun in the sun. It's the Film and Music Conference, bringing top creatives and filmmakers together for 2 days of inspiration, education, and new connections. I think, I could be mistaken, And MusicBed is probably going to be pissed if I get this wrong, but I think this is the second iteration of this event, and I know that last year's was a big success. Tickets to this event are $599, but you can get 10% off with the code WanderingDP. You can find more information at filmandmusic.com. So this is the coming together. MusicBed, I think they have a sister company, Film Supply, or maybe it's a brother company. Well, I don't know. It's a non-binary, gender-neutral company that is associated with MusicBed. They're putting on this fantastic conference. I know that it got rave reviews last year, and I was so close to getting there last year, but I didn't make it. And $599 for the ticket. You get 10% off. Wandering DP. I know it's going to be fun this year, and I'm excited for it. We've got some speakers. There's breakout groups, there's keynotes, and this year there's a Robert Legato is one of the speakers. He's an award-winning VFX supervisor who reinvented the film industry when he introduced virtual cinematography and applied it to legendary films like Titanic, Apollo 13, Hugo, The Jungle Book, and many more. Through his work, he's collaborated with some of the most well-respected names in the film industry: Martin Scorsese, James Cameron, Ron Howard, and Robert Zemeckis. So he's going to be there, giving some sort of talk, some sort of speech. There's Franklin Leonard, who's the founder of The Blacklist, the yearly publication highlighting Hollywood's most popular unproduced screenplays. Basically films that you're never going to work on. You can hear The Blacklist scripts have earned 250 Academy Award nominations and 50 wins. Franklin has worked in development at Universal Pictures and production companies of Will Smith, Sidney Pollack, and Anthony, I can't pronounce your last name, Minghella, Leonardo DiCaprio, and John Goldwyn. So people like that are going to be here. And there's going to be more speakers. And you can hear about those speakers in the second part of this advertisement after our talk with Colin Watkinson. So that is the MusicBed. And speaking of which, this is not part of the advertisement for MusicBed because we already talked about their website. We talked about this little conference that's happening. You can find out more information at filmandmusic.com. But these conferences, a lot of the times when you're starting out, you're like, I don't understand. I don't see the benefit of going to these conferences, to hear these people talk. Well, the talking is great. But it's and you're going to hear some interesting stuff from people like Robert and from Franklin, and those I have no doubt you're going to pull away valuable information from those. But really, it's about the conversations that happen in between there, because the people that will go to these things are people at your level or just above your level or just below your level that you're going to want to communicate with. And I know tons and tons of people that will go to these types of conferences where it's maybe a little bit more niche than something like NAB or CineGear, because they allow you an opportunity to converse with people outside of the classes, outside of the breakout events, outside of the keynote speaking. That is where I think the real value in going to something like this is. You get to meet up with the community and see people face to face and form relationships where, again, we've talked about it multiple times on the show. If you see someone face to face, you immediately have so much more clout in that person's mind. If you're not a complete dipshit, if you're not a douchebag, they will like you more than someone that they've never met before online. So if a job comes up, maybe you want to say, I want to get into doing this or do that, you have the opportunity to sell yourself. Sounds bad, but it's not that. It's more just forming relationships. And this is where these things start. I know a lot of really talented people were at last year's and they made some great connections and people got jobs from those. So not only are you going to get education from the people that are speaking, but it's also an opportunity to network, and not in some slimy, sleazy, sort of cocktaily way, but in a real way of people that have the same interests as you. So lots of good things to come from a conference like the Film and Music Conference in Fort Worth, Texas, September 28th and 29th. Okay. That's going to do it for the advertisements. Thank you very much, MusicBed. And we are going to get into this week's featured guest, cinematographer Colin Watkinson. Let's do it. Just so you're from Liverpool. How long have you been? You live in LA now?
Yes, I do.
How long have you been out here?
I've been in LA for 10 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And work that brought you out here?
We just fancied a change of scenery. I was working in London. I've been in London since I was 18.
Yeah.
And the commercial industry, which I spent a lot of time in, was changing. I worked with a lot of US agencies, and I just enjoyed being out here. I enjoyed working out here. I enjoyed working with Americans, and something happened in my life that made you realize that sometimes you just have to go for it. And we did.
Yeah.
We moved over, and it's, so touch wood, it's working so far.
Yeah. And was it something where you had already been out here a few times and had connections so that you hit the ground running once you come out, or is it you have to start all over again?
I think I was fairly naive. I thought I could make it quicker than I could. But it was a great challenge once we got it here. I had an agent, and she told me that if I wanted to make it work in the US, I had to be here.
Yeah.
So I came out. I did like a year commuting.
Yeah.
To try and get it together, and I got the show Entourage, which kind of sealed everything. Got me enough union hours to have the medical, the security that I needed for the family to come out.
Yeah. And what kind of stuff was that part of the plan to move into longer form stuff when you came here? Were you already doing that back in England? How was the progress going?
I always wanted to get into longer form. It was just it was hard.
Yeah.
And I did a film in 2004, 2006. I was trying to use that as leverage to get more long form.
Yeah.
And it was working, and then Entourage came along, and that was great. I was just each step by step, constantly, trying to sort of move forward.
Yeah. And if you look back now on your agent saying, you really had to be here to give it a go, have you found that to be the case?
She was totally right.
Yeah. In the sense that you just need to be in those circles?
You need to be in the circles here. I thought I could do it from London, and some people do, but I think you have to be a bit of a superstar to be able to do it.
Yeah. And what about the commercials from there? You'd already worked with so many people out here that it didn't take long to establish those connections? It
took a while, Again, I didn't realize how much things would change when I came over here. I still thought I would work back in Europe. And that kind of stopped it instantly.
Yeah.
And so I had to. It was like a rebuild.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. I learned a lot about myself, about my work. Some of it good, some of it bad.
Yeah.
When I kind of meandered a little bit when in some directions, like finding things out about my work that I don't want to be. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to do this type of work.
Yeah.
Or this style. And it was a few years. It's been an interesting journey.
Yeah, and did you find, because we've had a few different cinematographers on the show that have said there's pluses and minuses to making that mid-career location change, but one of them can be that one of the advantages can be that you're going into a place that isn't familiar with your work, and for a small window of time you become the sort of new person that people haven't seen before. Did you experience the positive aspects of that at all?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
There was definitely a flurry at the start.
Yeah.
And then, then the interesting part was finding, I think I drifted a little bit into changing my style, and I think I lost myself a little bit about what my style was. I had this sort of, it was like a meld of European and US style, and I think it was a bit of a mess, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I had to, to course correct for that, and make it more defined. Not be, I'm not that type of DP, and I'm not that type of DP anymore.
Yeah.
I guess it's created an identity.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Yeah. And did you have a specific thing? I mean, you mentioned that you wanted to get into longer form stuff, and that was part of the move. But did you go into it with a practical plan for that to happen, or was it just about taking commercials and taking things in between and seeing what came?
Yeah, just keep working. Keep shooting, keep learning.
Yeah,
and and having the agents try and find possibilities to do long form.
Yeah.
If I look back, maybe I should have been more active. I still don't know what I would have done to what circles to move in to sort of find the longer form.
Yeah,
that's it's all about connections.
Yeah,
I found that out through various types of. I've moved agents a few times now, and it's all about connections.
Yeah. And do you find that now that you've had this experience and you've been here for a while now and you feel more comfortable, do you find that work is still coming in the same way as it was before, in the sense that is it still based on personal relationships, or do you find now as you grow, more things come from the outside?
More things are coming from, my work being out there.
Yeah.
Which, that was always an aim.
Yeah.
It's still connections though. You meet people and they meet you, introduce you to somebody else, and
yeah.
It's yeah.
And for as the series work grows and gets out there, do you still actively think about things like, well, I don't want to do that because it'll take me away from commercials for an extended period of time, or it'll take me away from, or doing commercials will take me out of something? Do you still think of it like that, or is it just a project by project basis?
Most things are project by project. I'm after trying to tell good stories. I've had a great time in commercials, but I'm trying to move on.
Yeah.
They're still there. It's still great, but it's I'm definitely more interested in telling stories and moving the visuals forward in that sort of sense.
Yeah. And has your process changed as you shift over from commercials? Because a lot of the time in commercials you'll have significantly less pre-production time, and that will allow you to not place as much importance on something as you would on a longer form series. Does it change your approach in, well, number one, the crafting of the look? Now that you have more time, do you approach things, not more time in the sense of on set, but more time in preparation?
I've always tried to have some sort of plan.
Yeah.
And sometimes the plan needs a bit more work than others.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've changed that in that respect.
Yeah.
It's the longer form requires more planning. Just in terms of on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Even creatively, it's like how we're going to approach this scene, how we're going to do this. So, but every day is making. Every scene I do is. It's like shooting a commercial. It's like every story has to be told.
Yeah.
And the work has to be done.
Yeah.
And when you don't do the work, I'm very aware of it.
Yeah.
When I feel embarrassed, I get annoyed at myself and not having done the work.
Yeah.
And then strive next time to fix that.
Yeah. And are you someone that enjoys the preparation process and
not particularly?
No.
I much prefer the shooting process.
Yeah.
But it's I'm getting better at it.
Yeah.
And it's I'm starting to learn to enjoy it and starting to see the benefits of good solid prep.
Yeah. And by getting better at it, does that mean that you can see how the translation from the work and prep gets put into the image?
Yes. And the story, how the story's told, how we want to tell it.
Yeah.
Rather than sort of being forced in a certain the more prepared you are when you go in on the day and things change, which they do, you're much more. It's more likely. I find it likely for me that I'll come up with something that's not maybe as good or better, but something I'll be proud of. It's like, okay, that works, rather than sort of flailing.
Yeah. Uncontrollable flailing is never good.
Never good.
Yeah. And have you found, is it because of something that you're doing now that you find that gets better, or is it just the experience in it? Is it, do you now collect references and share them with the director? What's the operation for actually finding that look and getting prepared?
Talking. Yeah. Really breaking it down and questioning what's going on, what we're saying.
Yeah.
Why are we saying it?
Yeah.
And how we say it, and pushing things backwards and forwards. Putting ideas out, not being afraid to put an idea out, and not being afraid to for that idea to be rubbish.
Yeah.
And not being afraid to tell that someone else's idea is rubbish. Not rubbish, but it's not. That's. We think there's something better.
Yeah. To be honest.
Yeah. To be honest. Yeah.
And when you're doing series work, where sometimes you will have been on the show longer than the director, or you may know the show differently than the director, and someone new comes in, does that change the dynamic of the conversation? Where
every director is different.
Yeah.
And you have to and they're there for a reason. You can try and find out why they're there.
Yeah.
And get the best out of them.
Yeah.
And work with them and enjoy the process.
Yeah.
That's what I try to do. It's.
And when you have those conversations with the director, are you, is there anything that you do to facilitate an easier or a quicker way to pick up the dialogue? Or do you like to use reference stills and send them through to the director and say, this is what we're thinking? Or do you like for them to say that to you and then you go out and sort of...
I like them to come at me, usually with something, a starting point, a kick-off point.
Yeah.
That means something to them. Why that it's usually what the director kicks it off, and then we sort of bash it around, throw it around a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes they go, "This is it. This is what we want. This is what I'm doing."
Yeah.
You know, get in line.
Yeah.
You know, and you look at it, and
Yeah.
but you know, I mean, I guess it's at the moment because I've been on this show for 2 years, and it has changed how I work a lot. But it's all a collaboration, you know, and that's what we're trying to find the line of best fit.
Yeah, and is it? I can imagine it's different. I haven't done something as long as that or as in depth. But does it change the way? Does it change what's exciting to you about coming into work when you're on commercials and every single week you'll be in a different spot with a different director doing a different thing and you have that that newness to keep things fresh and exciting and the problem solving. Does that change? Does that go away when you work on something that needs to I mean, there is consistency throughout, but does it change the enjoyment?
No, because I feel I change everything regularly. You know, I'll probably never like the same set twice.
Yeah.
The same. And I the way I look at that is that when in your house you go into your room at different times of the day. It always looks different.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
So that's how I see life. It's like it's so even though some of those sets we've shot on numerous times, there's always a different way to look at it.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to do to keep it fresh.
Yeah. And how does the idea of keeping things fresh translate to your communication with the crews? Are you someone that is very exact in what you want, or do you allow?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As in you'll say the lights. This is what I want. This is where I want it, and the crew.
Yeah.
Then translates that.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you? Has that how it's always been?
No. I mean, yes. I like to be. I'm quite controlling with when I'm on set.
Yeah.
And again, I will listen to everyone ideas, but I'll lead the way.
Yeah.
If someone's got a better idea, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And that's from any part of the crew.
Yeah.
But I'll run it until someone comes up with something. So some suggestions I'm always open for suggestions.
Yeah. And the environment that you find your best work in, is that something that is controlled, or is it are you doing when you're doing scenes, are you doing exhaustive lighting plans beforehand to then have the freedom on the day to be able to move, or do you like to challenge yourself when you're there?
I mean, it's on this show. It's that we have we started out with a plan on the sets, so they're in place and have been in place. I mean, they've changed a few times, but so the bones have always been there. Yeah. I have to have the bones. Yeah. And then the flexibility to move within that. That's what I try and create, so I don't lock myself in. Yeah. If I feel trapped, it's a bad thing.
Yeah. And can you tell in your relationship with directors when there are some directors that will be very hands off and say, Colin, you do the things that you do, or there would be directors that will be very interested in the visual side of things. Do you feel at home in one environment or another?
I mean, I guess I worked with Tarsem for 25 years, and he's a master visualist, and so I feel very comfortable in that environment. Even to the point that if one feels not good enough to be in that it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. I wish I would never have thought of this in a million years. Yeah, I like that. It drives me that to try and do better. Yeah. But then other directors who are not visual, they'll have another gift, and I'll enjoy that side of it. Yeah, there'll be something there. And there's some really fascinating people out there. Yeah, just I always hone into what they're really good at and enjoy that. Yeah,
and do you find that as the shows get bigger or the projects get bigger and more cameras come to the fold, do you feel at home away from the camera, or do you like to be? I like to operate.
I like to operate. I like to be at the sharp end. Yeah, and I feel like I can react better. It keeps me. I feel totally invested when I'm there. Yeah, and I can adapt much quicker.
And how many cameras are you guys using on Handmaid's Tale?
We have two regularly. Yeah. I mean, I don't try and shoot two all the time. If it's one camera, it's one camera. Yeah. I don't really like to compromise the second camera.
Yeah. And would you do the same thing as before when we talked about crew and lighting placement? Would you do the same thing with the second camera, where you would be saying, this is what I'm doing, this is what I want you to do, or would you be?
Yeah, I like I want to know what everything's going on. I mean, every shot is as important to me as the next. So I really hate the term A and B cameras. My crew sort of laugh at me. They ignore me completely.
Yeah.
But I don't have A and B cameras.
Yeah.
Because every shot's as important as the next.
Yeah.
I don't like throwaway shots.
Yeah.
Because they make it sometimes they make it into the cut and it makes me mad.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And when you're so when you're considering the use of the two cameras, is it a time thing as opposed to a choice thing, or is it all dependent on the scene?
All dependent on the scene.
Yeah.
Sometimes a film I did with Tarsem, The Fall, was we had this young actress and he decided, like literally day one, that he was never going to miss a single word she said on film. So we always had a camera on her, and we had to work around that, and it was genius. We got some amazing performances. People talk about that, but how'd you get performance out of that girl? And that's how he did it.
Yeah.
He just never missed a word.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely one way to do it.
So every situation is different. Why you should use a second camera.
Yeah, and so you're not taking into account. I mean, it's not changing the way that you're lighting when you add in that second camera.
It can do. I mean, that's why I treat. It's like it has to be a thought out choice.
Where
is it going to compromise the shot?
Yeah.
And sometimes I put it in, try and get this. I think I can get a second camera here.
Yeah.
And get this shot, and then there's like a realization of like, oh no, either one, it's taking too long to do the two shots, to light the two shots.
Yeah.
Or it's one of the cameras is compromising the other one.
Yeah.
So it's like, get rid of it.
Yeah.
And I'll make that decision very quickly, and and it's all for the good of the show.
Yeah.
Or what I'm doing. That's the idea.
Yeah. And when you're on set on the day, in terms of technical things, how are you judging exposure on set now? Are you using? That's
interesting, yeah, because I changed completely with Handmaids. And it was a huge leap for me, but it's something I've really enjoyed. My DIT Ben Wiley, he wanted me to pass over in the control of the iris, and we were going to have a fairly aggressive LUT. So we had to expose to the LUT.
Yep.
And it took me a good few weeks, maybe months. I don't know. He could tell you that.
Yeah.
But now we're into a rhythm. I really enjoy it. It's like it's that sort of part of the mystery of the exposure is kind of gone. I let them know how I want it to look and go fly by his DIT tent. We have a little conversation, and he's like 99% of the time he's spot on.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weight off. It's a weight off my back. It's like I can concentrate on other things now.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of surprised me how much effort and thought would go into the exposure.
Yeah.
And now it's not just exposure. It's like it's all the levels. Everything I can think about everything as a whole. What am I expressing here, and let him deal with the tech bit.
Yeah.
It's an interesting way of working. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
It'll be hopefully I can carry that on. With each DIT that I move on with, it's become like I feel really connected with the DIT now.
Yeah.
Now that I've got this sort of system going.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely see more and more people adopting that style.
Yeah.
Of working.
Yeah.
And how did you go about defining that LUT? Was it through testing in pre-production and going over it with the directors and saying, or the creators and saying, this is what we want, or this is the direction that we're going in? Why?
We talked about, with Handmaids, I mean, we got a little bit lucky how it popped out. We talked a lot about colour, a lot of references of colour, a lot of pictures, a lot of, mostly all pictures. And we knew we wanted to push it in that direction. And then day one we shot, and it's like, it's a bit average. So we went crowded around Ben, me and Reed Morano crowded around Ben, and make it aggressive.
Yeah.
Push it.
Yeah.
And he did, and he really pushed it. And I think he thought, I'll show you, I'll push it all the way. And we went, yeah, that's where it needs to be, right there.
Yeah.
And it's been and it works.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. And so you just had one show LUT throughout the time, or are you the type of person that's...
plenty. Yeah. I mean, try and keep, It's funny, on episode 10 of season 1, or just episode 9, the end of episode 9, he slipped and broke his arm. And so we got a new DIT in.
Uh-oh.
And that was an interesting couple of days. It taught us about how we should manage our LUTs a little bit more.
Yeah.
Name them properly.
Yeah. Not just final version 1, final version 2.
Yeah. It was because the young lad would come on. He said, "Well, that's what it says," and it's like, "Well, it looks rubbish." And then we'd flick through a couple of LUTs. That's it there.
Yeah.
Completely named completely incorrectly, but that was
That's the way.
Yeah.
And are you someone throughout the process where you're still, even though you have that LUT or you have that series of LUTs going on over what the camera's seen, will you then at the end of the day, are you still going down and sitting with the DIT and sort of massaging things further, or is it pretty much you've got it down now to the?
No, we still massage, change it,
Yeah.
and just again question it. Does it look too much? Is it too boring? What needs to happen to get this to the point that we want it?
Yeah. And in terms of the camera package and the lenses, what did you guys end up going with?
On Handmaid stuff?
Yeah.
We shoot on Alexa Minis.
Yep.
And the lenses are Canon K35s.
Yeah. And the choice of camera, familiar with the Alexa well beforehand?
Yes, I've been using the Alexa for a long time.
Yeah.
And Reed, she was as you all know, a cinematographer and was very much an Alexa person. So that was a no-brainer. Yeah. We thought we might be up against Hulu because this sort of Netflix with their sort of 4K mandate. But Hulu were very receptive. It's like we said we want this camera for this style of cinematography. Yeah. And they went, yeah. They were great, and we tested multiple lenses. We were going to go down one road, and that wasn't really working for us. So we decided to test these lenses, and I just shot Emerald City on these K35s, and they're really gorgeous. And Reed luckily really liked them. They flare beautifully, so they're good for the show. Yeah.
Well, the K35 is always interesting because you can find some really amazing sets. Yeah. And then you find some sets that that haven't received the same amount of love that others have.
Yeah. No, the ones we have are really good. Yeah.
And are you someone that will, because there's some cinematographers that say now, especially with the amount that you can do later on, would be putting less in front of the lens? Do you guys use any diffusion? Are you a diffusion person in general?
If needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not mostly classic softs. Yeah. That's about it.
Yeah, just taking the edge off of things.
Yeah. If it needs a bit of smoothing.
Yeah. And then how involved are you in the process as it goes through? I imagine you're still shooting while most of the stuff is happening. How involved in the process are you after?
I grade every episode.
You do?
Yeah.
Like you personally, or you're there at the grade?
At the grade, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Not you're on the wheels.
No, I'm not on the wheels. No, that'd be impossible. Yeah. No, I do that with and even on episode season 1, I brought the onset DIT Ben into the room as well. Yeah. Because it was just he'd been so integral to the process that it was like, and I love that. I know it was a little bit weird for Bill, grader at Deluxe at first for him. Yeah. This extra guy sort of
lurking around,
another voice.
Yeah.
But it was great. Yeah. I follow it all the way through.
Yeah. And the amount of work that you're doing, and when you see that first pass, are you the type of person that can only see it for the faults, or are you able to see the entire picture? Are you able to look back at your work? Yeah. Yeah. And just be like, oh, geez, shouldn't have done that.
It's and learning to walk away and come back to it. It's a little bit harder on such a tight schedule. Yeah. But I think you really have to do that. Is try something, look at it, and then come back to it. A couple of fresh eyes. Yeah. And see we go in the right direction. Yeah. Or too much or not enough.
Yeah. And you take that information that you learn and push it forward onto the next thing, or is it once you get in and style?
And try and it's using it to tell a story. It's like what are we saying? What's with Handmaids it can be unusual because we can try and make something that's really sickening but make it beautiful. We try and really use do opposite things.
Yeah. And when you do go away for these projects that are a little bit longer and you come out of it, are you the type of person that the next time something comes up, you'll go through a whole series of camera tests to see everything that's come out, or is it more, are you less technical in that sense?
It's interesting. I was at Cinegear yesterday, and it's like, I think I found the lenses for my next project, but I don't enjoy like multiple testing, like really intense testing.
Yeah.
I feel like I get lost.
Yeah, there's an easy sense of that.
So I try and sort of choose like maybe 3 things.
Yeah.
And test those things.
Yeah.
Make a choice, make a positive choice from the start.
Yeah.
And then then narrow it down.
Yeah. And when you say make a choice, is that camera? Is that lenses? Is that anything?
Well, this next project, I'm definitely going to look at another different camera.
Yeah.
Again, my heart's telling me, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
You're very happy with the Alexa, but again, there's the mandate is sort of a 4K mandate means I need to look at other things.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a good thing. I'm going to check the Sony Venice out, see what that's like.
Yeah. Push you into certain areas.
Yeah.
And does the idea of full frame or using different formats, does that excite you at all, or is it just a matter of what looks better?
What looks better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter the format of the frame.
There's you try and take what the different elements of that and say, okay, that's that will deliver that. I'll use that.
Yeah.
I've got some ideas how we can make that look a bit different. Use it for the story.
Yeah. And what now gets you excited about when you get done with a big project like this? What gets you excited about the next thing? Is it the
script?
The script.
Yeah. Getting literally being dragged in the first 10 minutes, and then I can't. If I can't put it down, that's like, okay, I really want to do this.
Yeah.
If I'm drifting, from 20 pages in drifting, it's like no.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so much content out there.
Yeah.
I know I'm really short when I've watched something. If it doesn't grab me in 10 minutes, I'm out.
Yeah.
It's just the way I am.
Yeah, and now having been involved in such a successful series like this, is the approach to series or the approach to features, is it any different? The how you would do it, or what you're interested in, really? Because there's so many avenues now that it does.
Yeah. I think just telling a story, just again, because there's so much content, I want to make something that people want to watch.
Yeah.
And enjoy.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. Even if it was a comedy, but it's still, I just. It's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what form, like you don't think about it in terms of, now I want to do features, now I want to do this.
Because I still don't have that control.
Yeah.
So I feel very lucky to be working in the first
Just
place.
in general, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I've met some really good people, and it's the people you work with is important as well.
Yeah.
I'd hate to go to work miserable.
Yeah.
That's not fun at all.
Yeah.
So it's good script, who you're working with, and you sort of as you grow and these things happen. That's the important bit to me.
And I can imagine on features or on a long form series or anything like that, the process of making sure that you're going to enjoy going into work every day.
Yes.
Is even more important.
Yeah, I think it is.
And how do you go about what are some of the things you're looking for besides the script? That is it that you can bring on your crew that you want, or where the location is, or
I try. Each project you try and make the best decisions for the project. Yeah, for myself and for the project. You know, and there's always it's each one's so different. Yeah, that's what I find. Each project's so different, and it's literally from the ground up. Yeah, and how it operates. How each television show will operate differently to the next one. Yeah. That's what I find funny about television. They try and sort of put it in a box. Well, this is how we do it. It's every one I've done has been totally different.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was just about to going to ask, because, is there, from a workflow point of view, from your day-to-day job, is there a difference between whatever it is you're creating in terms of the final output of it?
Say again.
Is there any difference in the operational, day-to-day experience of being a feature film cinematographer versus a series cinematographer? Is there anything that you have to?
Well, it's been a while since I did a film, so I'll come back and tell you that when I get to do another film. Yeah. I feel like I've been 3 years in the TV world. Yeah. And each one of them has been different. Yeah. So. Yeah.
And is it something again, static or something? Is it something where you think to yourself when get out of a project like that? All I want to do is do something quick, or do you miss the idea of commercials and being in and
Commercials
out?
have changed a lot. They're not as fun as they used to be. The power has drifted more towards the client, so it's no one wants to upset the client. I don't think commercials really know what they're about right now.
Yeah.
How to monetize them. There's the sports are still working for commercials, but generally everywhere else. So they feel a little bit in flux.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to sort itself out. Content will still be needed. How it presents itself remains to be seen.
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited by that, because it will have to come out. Something will have to happen.
Yeah.
Can't carry on like it's the old format doesn't work anymore really as a general basis.
Yeah.
Do you not think?
No, I would definitely agree. And there is things happening. It's just how slow.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah. I don't think there is no sort of the end game's not there, so it doesn't know how to move.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the amount of the space where the things will go and who has the power, like you say. Do you think that comes down to, or you think that shift happens when digital comes in, and now instead of trusting that the director and the DP can deliver this small thing, that now you have clients and agencies staring at what will essentially, is 90% of the way there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely more it's corporate led. It's again, I guess they do need to have control. It's it's because it is since the advert, since we could spin through commercials. When did that start?
Yeah.
And then with the internet, when watching shows without commercials, all of a sudden commercials they became defunct pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So they're still making. They still exist, and there's still arenas that they can exist in, and they're still trying. You click on a YouTube video, you've got to watch a stupid commercial for 30. That seems more annoying than they used to. I used to enjoy them being on television.
Yeah, not anymore.
Not anymore. So there's a lot at stake, and that's what I feel when you go on a commercial now. There seems to be a lot at stake.
Yeah, more pressure.
So it's like, okay, what do you need from me?
Yeah,
I'll just deliver it the best I can.
Yeah,
and get out.
Yeah, well, it certainly seems. I mean, it's a much more difficult avenue for the cinematographer to have any sort of leverage for expression.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, when it's all. And then do you find that that's also lacking? I mean, the shift from film to digital on a narrative set. Does it make a difference now that everyone can see the final image? And
I'm sure it does. Yeah. But I for me, it's in a good way. I think and again with collaboration, you can push it further.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered about the dark art gone. It's I'm still, as the cinematographer, leading the way. If somebody turns around to me and said that's totally rubbish, and you go, why is it rubbish? Because of this and this, and they made it better. Then I'd turn around and go, okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Show me what it is.
Yeah.
I think it keeps people. It's the whole crew. Without everybody, without all the departments, you can't make something that's really good.
Yeah.
So you got everybody watching. I love it. That's Q-Take, and you go around the set, and there's everyone watching on their iPads.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
and they've all got people. They know instantly what you're making.
Yeah, yeah.
What we're making is what I mean. So
yeah. And do you find that your preference for, or your, I guess I should say, your boldness changes when you can see the final thing? Do you think you're more? Yeah, more.
Totally.
More.
I think I'm not interested in shooting on film again. I think I can be really bold on digital.
Yeah.
I can play with the color, and be brave with the color, and literally with with all these new LED lights, the stuff you can do.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And and I go home and sleep well at night.
Yeah. Yeah. No more worrying about the lab.
No. Although I said, you try not to worry too much. I had one focus police said one thing to me once. He said, "It never gets any sharper in the bath." So
true.
He never lost a wink of sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. And are you a cinematographer that likes to change up the ways that you do things from a practical standpoint as well? Like we've heard Rob Hardy talk about how he only wants to use tungsten lights all the time. Do you have those things in your workflow that you like to keep consistent? Do you experiment from season to season or show to show with what you bring?
I try
on?
a bit of experimentation and then lock into something. It's like, okay, like last season we definitely changed the style a bit this year. I think more for ease. It's interesting now. You look back on it and you go, okay, it's kind of a mix that works better. Towards the end of the season, I was definitely mixing it back up again.
Yeah.
But I don't, it's just to maintain the look. I have to have some sort of standard.
Yeah.
And whatever it is to get there.
Yeah. And when you say, because this would be a good one, because you're doing so many days on a specific project, and there has to be a consistency, even though you're in the same location multiple times, and that will feel different. But is it that the look and you're replicating it, or are you setting up specific variables inside of the look to be consistent? Are you lighting to a certain stop in a certain place, or is it the look?
Yeah, I know the look. Yeah, the stop thing, that's usually, it's a technical requirement. If it's a balance issue, okay, I know what I need to get to achieve the look I want in my head.
Yeah.
So I need to balance that to that.
Yeah.
Or, we need this much stop for this.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just technicality rather than.
Yeah. It's not like you're setting out a rule book at the beginning going, okay,
no.
This is how, no steady cam or no whatever it might be.
On Handmaid we started, there's one thing we try not to do. We try not to do overs, but again, you break. You make rules, and they're there to be broken. But you have to know why you're breaking them.
Yeah.
What's the reason? What's the story reason why you're breaking this rule?
Yeah.
I enjoy that bit. When the director sort of when there's a challenge, and it's like, okay, let's not just do it. Don't make anything easy. If it's easy, it's like put it. Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah. And the communication of that on set, is that does that stay with you, between you and the director, those high level conversations, or are you sharing that with the crew so that they can understand where?
I mean, I'm fairly open.
Yeah.
So people jump in and dive in. And that's our set. I mean, again, there's always a lot of respect. Otherwise, it'd be chaos on set. But if people have an idea, they're there. We're discussing it. We discuss it right there. With the actors and everything, and how we're telling the story. And yeah, it's a pretty open book.
Yeah. And going forward with the style of work, do you get out of Handmaid's Tale and say to yourself, I want to be in a completely different genre and in a completely different world, and look for things along there, even though the story still reigns true? Is it something that you're like, man, if I could just get on a spaceship, for a few months, it would be nice?
There's elements of Handmaids that is just a style that I like to do. There's elements of how it works that I think will always carry on to everything I do.
Yeah.
I don't know how I could literally not do them. There's certain compositional styles, certain shooting styles.
Yeah.
There's just like, okay, that's what I like.
Yeah.
It'd have to be a story that would, okay, I'm going to break those own taste things I have for the particular story.
Yeah.
It'd have to, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I always try and make a decision how we're gonna shoot things, and then try and stick to it. But again, sometimes the rules are there to be, you have to break them.
Yeah, and there's sort of we've had this discussion a few times now on the podcast, which has been the way that you look at the ultimate role of the position. That very first step can sometimes dictate how you operate within the whole space, where there's one side of the coin, which is a very there's technical elements to it, where you're sort of a craftsman and you have these things, and then there's the artistic element where people are hiring Colin for Colin.
Yeah.
Where do you sit in that mix of being that person who will deliver the technical results, but also being able to put your stamp on things?
I think that's dictated to by who's hiring you, and what sort of how they are.
Yeah.
And hopefully that that first day on set, you get it right.
Yeah.
And hit it, start running in the right direction.
Yeah.
But I always feel it's a little bit different with every director.
Yeah. And in the case of Handmaid's Tale, who comes to you in those initial talks to say, okay, Colin, we'd like to get you on board? Is it the creator? Is it the producer? Is it who's reaching out to you?
Reed Morano reached out to me initially.
Yeah.
She'd seen a film I did, Another Fall, and she really liked it, and that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I knew her work, and she's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And we had a really good Skype call, and I think it took a moment.
Yeah.
I don't know if they thought my style was right for the show, or the style they thought I had.
Yeah.
And she convinced them, and I mean, she was amazing. She was just like, this is going to work. The melding of her style and my style was going to work.
Yeah.
And luckily it did.
Yeah. And what do you think she saw in the style, or what was related to you as to, we think you can do this? Was it?
She liked these sort of very composed framings is what she was after.
Yeah.
To mix in with her sort of visceral type of filmmaking.
Yeah.
Which that's how we sort of with Gilead was meant to be sort of very composed and beautiful, and the flashbacks were all meant to feel very real, like they were happening right now.
Yeah.
And she's like a master of that. I've learned a lot from her how to do that.
Yeah. And is it? I mean, it has to be a unique situation. I'm only thinking how I would be feeling if you were working for someone who was, very recently, obviously a very skilled cinematographer. Did that change the conversations that you would have, or?
I mean, she's very strong-willed.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it. It's like, okay, here's your moment to learn something.
Yeah, keeping on your toes.
Yeah, and I mean, she's very witty. So she dealt with it really well.
Yeah.
And it was just, I really enjoyed the collaboration. I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
My next project's with another ex-cinematographer.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of obviously enjoying that. Yeah, that's me now.
You're that guy.
Yeah.
Any DPs out there looking to make the transition?
I actually don't do a lot of work. That's what it is. They do it all.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a lazy factor.
You just take the credit.
Just turn up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. And is the next project, is it along the same lines of genre and whatnot?
No.
Completely different. That's
completely
fun.
different. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very contemporary.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
An opportunity to experiment with different things.
Yes. Yeah. And again, there's flashbacks. I see. Every script I seem to read has flashbacks. Does every script have a flashback in it?
Yeah, you're the flashback guy.
Yeah.
Does
one exist without them? I don't know.
Okay. And are you keeping the same rules in place where you're trying to keep them?
No, it's totally different. It's very different. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, the creator, the showrunner, has come up with these rules on this one. I love her ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very excited to try and get them get the visuals down.
Yeah, and that's an interesting dynamic because I don't think we've had anyone that has done on the show that has done this long form stuff. What does that conversation, the creative conversation, look like in the pre-production process on a series like that? Who's involved in the decision making?
On this particular one I'm doing now was I met the producer first, and he just he gave me an outline of what she's thinking, and gave me a reference for each one.
Yeah.
So I went back and then he said, well, I want you to come in next week with a lookbook. Okay.
Google lookbook, what is?
Yeah. And so I went away, looked at the references and read the script again and put something together. I enjoyed it. It was having something to kick off from.
Yeah.
It was so much easier for me. That's I find that easier. Maybe having nothing, just staring at a blank page is
quite difficult.
Yeah. But somebody has to do that.
Yeah.
She did it.
Yeah.
Amazed.
Yeah.
And she came up with these great ideas.
So the person that you're having the creative conversations with would be the producer and showrunner?
Yes.
That's the idea.
Yeah. I mean, I've only met the showrunner briefly.
Yeah.
And then the director came on.
Yeah.
Right. It was a slight. I say each show's so different. You don't know. There's no rules, but the director came. I had a meeting. The director came on, and then then we met, and there was already sort of rules in place, and so now we're sort of finding our way with her vision.
Yeah.
Fitting in with the showrunner's vision.
Yeah.
And putting all the pieces together. It's like a big jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
So.
And when you're in that process and you're working with multiple directors, as I said, is there is it something where they come to you with all these ideas and you say, you know,
great.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's great. No, it's positivity is everything.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, who wants to, you know, from the get-go, oh God, I don't want to, oh, do it really?
Yeah.
I mean, because we've all been there with that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the builder that comes in sucking his teeth. Want to do that? Oh, no, it's going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we know that bit. You know, all right, how can we do it?
Yeah.
You know, the showrunner the line producer on Entourage, a guy called Wayne Carmona, he was amazing. You know, he was the first guy I'd worked with it was just a challenge. The challenge today is to, he was just such a great guy to work with.
Yeah.
You know, and no matter how big the situation, whatever they wrote, he was never afraid of anything.
Yeah.
But then, can we come up with an idea? That's too much. And so what about then? He'd come back here with an answer. Always have an answer.
Yeah.
And a suggestion, and then he'd listen to you. It was just, so I've remembered that and tried to move with that. You know, that's how to look at it.
Yeah. And there's certainly something to be said for the environment that you create ends up impacting the work.
Yeah. No, and it's like if people are happy, then it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way that this latest series has come to you, is it any easier in the lead up now that you have had success like Handmaid's Tale? Does it is there less pushback from people, or are you still always selling and always sort of?
I think you're always selling. Yeah. I mean, the fear is to make something good for them. They've obviously come to me, having seen something that's been successful. Yeah. So now it's my job to try and make their show as good as I can.
Yeah. And you feel that pressure?
Yeah, I do feel the pressure a little bit. Yeah. I mean, only for myself.
Yeah.
Because I want to do it. It's like, okay, I need to do something else that's good. Yeah. And so I really want it for them. I really want it to work. Yeah. And just so you can go home at night and go, yeah, okay, did my best there, and that looks great. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, something in there. And normally when we wrap these things up, always, because the majority of the audience is going to be young cinematographers or young directors or people in the film industry that not necessarily want to fast track themselves to a successful position, but who would definitely benefit from the knowledge of maybe something that you didn't know about. It could be about the business, it could be about the technical side of cinematography, anything that you wished perhaps you would have known 5 years ago that would, or advice that would help them avoid any of the hurdles or pitfalls that you might have experienced before now.
I just wish I'd experimented earlier, and shot and I just think I'm a slow learner. And I wish I can't speed that up there. That is what it is. But, it's like there's certain things I wish I could have learned quicker. Yeah. I mean, I guess just, I wish I'd, I thought I had lots of experience and looked at lots of stuff, but, there's always so much to take in. Yeah. And you can just keep taking it in. And I think I used to watch things again and again. I wish I'd sort of go and watch something else. Yeah. Instead of repetition. But maybe that's how I learned. So maybe I can't go back on it. Yeah. But I wish I had more knowledge. Yeah. I'd like to have gone to film school just to sort of the appreciation of cinema, and being taught that. Yeah. I've had to kind of learn all that myself. And it's very badly. Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you say that line about, watching one thing and then watching something else. Because did you find, or did you go through a period where when you're first starting out and you get a series or you get even a commercial, that you tried to make it look like a commercial rather than making it look how you wanted it? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Does it get easier, the process of not doing that? Trying to force the wrong look into the project. Yeah, I think I was definitely guilty of that. Yeah. So now it seems to fit so much easier. Yeah. It's like, okay, this needs to look like this. Yeah. Again, you might be wrong. It's like someone says it's too bright, too dark. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. How about that? That's exactly what I was thinking. Okay, great. I enjoy that. I enjoy the fact that I can move quicker and adjust and adapt quicker. Yeah. And in the process of thinking about how you want to make it look rather than how you think it should look. Yeah. It gets easier. Yeah. 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 Okay. No, good. I'm just checking that there's hope. Yeah. As you move up, that's the case. Cool.
Well, Colin, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thanks for taking the time out. Love the work and look forward to the future.
Thank you very much.
And just like that, it is come and gone. Thank you very much to Colin Watkinson for coming out to the studio, for having a chat. Super nice guy, and looking forward to the future for what Colin's going to be working on. I know he's got some exciting stuff coming up, so we'll keep you posted on his work, and we'll let you know when you can see some new stuff, because it's all happening now. So he's got a nice little team going and a nice thing, and very generous with his time and sharing his stories and his workflow process. So hopefully you got something good from that. I mentioned pretty much everything we had to say. I mentioned in the lead up here, Patreon members, make sure you go over and get your work in for this week's live stream. It's going to be on Friday, and I think that next week's show, it may be one of the last for a while of the breakdown videos, because we're getting into that zone where it's going to be hard to be posting stuff to the World Wide Web, rather than keeping it inside of the Patreon group where it's a little bit easier. So we may shift to even more interview episodes, which is not always a bad thing, right? Because you can get, if you like the breakdown videos, you can get the breakdown podcast, you can get that stuff over at Patreon where it's a little bit easier to share. And maybe we can share some different things that we wouldn't necessarily share in the big podcast here. And then after that, we're back at more interviews, and hopefully you enjoyed the different style of conversation that being face-to-face with someone does, and the improved audio quality, all that stuff. I think it's a good thing. So that is over on Patreon. Make sure you get your stuff in. And YouTube, you will have seen me now. You will have seen me now on YouTube many times. So get over there and subscribe. And the Music Bed, the Music Bed has got a conference, ladies and gentlemen. And you heard me mention it earlier. And you're thinking to yourself, Patrick, what other information could you possibly give me about this conference that you didn't give me 45 minutes ago? Well, I can tell you this. There's more speakers, right? It's going to be held in Texas. Texas is nice. We've never had anyone call the hotline from Texas, though. Maybe someone from Texas could call the hotline and say, I'm from Texas. This is why you should come to Fort Worth. Besides just this conference, the Film and Music Conference is happening September 28th and 29th. It brings top creatives and filmmakers together for 2 days. Imagine being in a room with people who know way more than you do and who get jobs regularly. And then you could try and squeeze a few little rolls out of it for yourself there. It's got inspiration, education, and a whole bunch of new connections. Tickets are $599, but you can get 10% off with the code WanderingDP. So just listening to this show can make you some cash. Now, I haven't spoken to the Music Bed about this at all. I haven't talked to them once about this issue, and I'm not making any promises, but what would be really cool is if perhaps we could give away some tickets. Could we give away tickets? I don't even know. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if that's a thing, but maybe if people went to the hotline, they left a message, they told us their sob story, right? Maybe you didn't grow up in a home. Maybe you grew up in the forest and you want a free ticket to film and music. Maybe you can share a story about how you're going to use the information or the connections that you make there to do something great. Who knows? Just an idea I'm putting out there, Music Bed people, if you're listening to this show. But what can you expect to see there? You're saying you can expect to already hear from the great speakers that we mentioned earlier, but also people like Rain Allen Miller, a visionary director and writer with a unique storytelling style. She is currently represented at Some Such, a production company that I've heard of, so you know it must be good. Featuring some of the top directors in the industry. Some Such. Rain has worked with leading creative agencies such as Havas, which sounds like someone with a cold, Exposure, Whedon and Kennedy, or Whedon and Kennedy. I think it's Whedon. She developed her award-winning career at Mother in London. Oh, Mother in London. Where? Generating work for clients including Save the Children, Money, Supermarket, BAFTA, and IKEA. Then we've also got I believe it's called Twin Towers, is going to be there. They are a award-winning filmmaking duo, which sounds very cool. Aaron and Winston. And their short film, Sleep Well, My Baby, was awarded a Webby Honorable Mention. It was a Vimeo staff pick, which is sort of the gold standard now of short films, and was distributed as the 4th installment of the Film Supply Presents series. So one of the home team for the Music Bed crowd. Their branded film, Super Marco, I think that's how it's pronounced, won them a Webby Award for People's Voice, as well as nominations for Best Emerging Directors, Best Narrative at the One Screen Film Festival. So that's the kind of people that are going to be talking. But again, we mentioned the value in just the connections that are going to be made. And last up, we got Dallas Taylor, Dallas is a name that I know, and Dallas is a sound designer / mixer, I believe. And if I know your name and you're in sound, you're probably doing good things. So Dallas launched De Facto Sound, where he's led thousands of high-profile projects ranging from blockbuster game trailers like Fallout 4 and Skyrim to Sundance-winning films to advertising campaigns with Nike, Adidas, Buick, National Geographic, and many more. So those are the types of speakers, and there's more speakers to come. There's more breakout groups to come. This is basically going to be 2 days of your life. That'll be a whirlwind adventure. And like I said, it's September 28th, 29th. It's in Fort Worth, Texas, which is not a bad vacation spot, I've heard. And you can go get your tickets. They're $599, and you get 10% off with the Wandering DP code. So make sure if you are going to get tickets that you give it a go. Okay, that is it for the advertisements. Thank you, MusicBed. Thank you to the Patreon people for making this all possible for you, watching at home or at the gym or in the car. Okay, that's going to do it. We will see you. Actually, go check out Colin's website, right? If you're on the show notes page, episode 132, go after you hit the hotline and tell me how much you like me. Go and check out Colin's work, because some of the commercial stuff that we didn't really even touch on is very, very high level stuff, and I think you're going to be even more appreciative of his approach to the work once you see it all. So go take some time out, have a little bit of fun, and we will see you in the next episode. Ladies and gentlemen, goodbye.
You've been listening to the Wandering DP podcast. For more information on the topics discussed in this episode and for show notes, visit www.wanderingdp.com. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to rate, like, and subscribe on iTunes.